Good afternoon, members. It's just 2 o'clock now, so we'll get the meeting started. So welcome to this meeting of the Police, Fire and Rescue Subcommittee. We'll have a couple of important performance reports to consider this afternoon, and I hope that we'll deal with this in the business-like manner that we normally do. Item 1, SEDERUNT and apologies. Claire?
Okay, thank you, Chair. We've got 8 members present today. 2 apologies from Councillors Charteris and Ferguson.
Thank you, Claire. Item...
Just out of curiosity, who's the vacancy? Which group does that belong to?
I think looking at it, it's probably the D&G Socialist group, but we'll look into that and chase it up. Thank you.
The D&G Socialist group. Okay, thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Do any members have a declaration that they wish to make at this time? No? Okay. Item 3, minutes of the previous meeting of 10th July 2019. Can we note the minutes of that meeting? Councillor Lever?
Not wishing to be a pain chair, but I think it was the last meeting I raised the issue of conviction rate versus detection rate. And no conviction rates to the Crown Prosecution Office. And I think Derek said they would try and investigate if there is any way in which they can get information about what the conviction rate is as opposed to the detection rate.
That's not featured in the minutes?
It's mentioned in the minutes.
Okay, can we resurrect that then?
Okay, those minutes were actually approved at full council on the 26th of September.
Well, okay, I'll raise it during this meeting in that case.
Thank you, Councillor Lever. Okay, we'll move on to item 4. Police Scotland, Dumfries and Galloway, local plan, 6-month performance update, 1st of April 2019 to 30th September 2019. Report by Head of Safe and Healthy Communities. Superintendent Stuart Davison is here today in place of Chief Superintendent Jones to respond to any questions members may have in this report. Before I open up to questions, Stuart, is there anything you would like to add to the report at this stage?
Good afternoon, everybody. It's just that it's a pleasure to see you all again, members. It's been a wee while, obviously in a new role now, but I'll just quickly cover a couple of things, Chair, if that's all right. It won't take long at all. Obviously, it's a very positive update report from ourselves that we've highlighted here. Just to cover 1 or 2 things in the report, there is a rise in shoplifting that you'll see, and I just want to mention that, and I know I've maybe covered it at area committees previously, but this is obviously a region-wide rise that we've seen across the area, not just Dumfries, but through across Galloway as well. And the reason, or part of the reason for that, is that there's been some increased work with our community policing teams in the town centres and in the local areas with the shopkeepers and the national retailers against crime. So we're actually been more working with them in partnerships, like increased training, increased preventions. Now what that's led to is then a knock-on effect of sort of more self-generated work, where we've been getting more calls about shoplifting, whether it's in the town of Dumfries or whether it's in Stranraer. So there's been a real positive work with the partners there, and I say that National Retailers Against Crime, also the Procurator Fiscal Service. Moving into the festive period, you'll be aware there'll be more people going about their daily business for shopping. So we've highlighted that as part of our work with the Procurator Fiscal Service, where we're looking at increased sort of bail conditions with repeat offenders, not just over the Christmas period, but now over the full term of a year. So that was just mainly for the shop relay scheme, and now we've expanded that, like I say, through the year for all the premises that are with that. Also internal support with our custody division colleagues to try and make sure that any repeat offenders are either getting signposted in the correct manner for the correct help, or they are getting locked up for court appearance the next lawful day. So there has been a lot of proactive work, Chair, that's led to some of this increase, and it has been sort of self-generated, in fairness, across the region.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Stuart. So we'll open up to members' questions on the report. Councillor Howe.
Just on the subject you were talking about there, Stuart, about shoplifters, I assume, just like when I was there, that it's the same individuals that tend to be repeat offenders, and just there is a presumption, or there's a move to a presumption against custodial sentences of under a year. Is that kicked in at all?
No, but, I mean, we meet with the Procurator Fiscal every quarter, the Fiscal's meeting, and certainly this was brought up when I noticed the rise in the VA area. So the sentencing was something that, I mean, I touched on with an MP when they came to visit us round about that same time. But certainly that close work with the Fiscal was important for the bail conditions. There are repeat offenders. I do have some details there that I can share later, but certainly generally known to us, and because of the proactive work with the town centre staff and across the whole region, we're well on top of them, and we are putting a lot of the same people to court.
Councillor Lever?
Just in terms of the shoplifting, is any indication that the rise is due to the increase in poverty? I mean, are people actually shoplifting in order to feed themselves effectively rather than to sell goods on in order to generate an income? That's the first question. The next one is the stop and search. The actual positive rate is 38%. How does that compare, across the country as a whole in terms of positive stop and search? And the third issue is the one I raised earlier on under the minutes. I think it would be useful if we could have some idea of what the conviction rate is as well as the detection rate. And as you say, you meet with the PFO on a regular basis. And if we could actually have some information on that, which would be very interesting.
Yep. So the conviction rate versus the detection rate, that's something that data we just simply can't provide or get our hands on. That's through the COPFS, as you know, and I think the Chief Super's highlighted that previously, Councillor, and the comparison with that, we can certainly provide the detection rates. We've got a very high detection rate, above the 5-year average at 82% nearly detection rate, which is really good. In respect to the stop search, it is better than other parts of the country. We're probably one of the highest detection rate in Scotland. You can see there that the figures speak for themselves, and that is through the close working that we do have with the partners, whether it's shopkeepers and the fiscals. But the first question that again you asked was, what are people stealing? Well, it's mainly to mainly to sell on. I would say there's a drug habit that people will know about, and whether it's to fund mainly drugs rather than the poverty aspect that you're maybe touching on is what we're maybe seeing.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Chair. Just a question for Stuart. Obviously, we're looking at the house breakings, and as you know, I'm in North West Dumfries, represent North West Dumfries. Obviously, you've got the house breakings, are down, but the problem is that what again, obviously, there's been a number of house breakings within Nisteo. Looking at the fire report behind the second item, they've got it all broken down into wards and that. And as an elected member, I'd like to know if we've got an issue in a particular ward or not. I'd rather if they were broken down into North West Dumfries or Nisteo, then it gives an indication that is there a problem in Nisteo, or we're getting in the rural area of Crocketford or Castle Douglas?
No, I appreciate that, Councillor, and I get why you would ask that for that scrutiny reason. But certainly, when I'm reporting or did an area committee, it was kind of breaking it down into that ward. So obviously the scrutiny reports, I believe, has always been the division-wide stats, and then at the area committee we were breaking that down for your wards, and I was given some reason and explanation. You're right, the North West Dumfries area that we've communicated about previously has had antisocial behaviour issues, but sitting behind me, obviously, I've got the Scottish Fire Rescue Service, and we work in partnership with them and the community safety team to try and increase patrols, increase all that preventative stuff. But in respect of me trying to get a breakdown, I can certainly take that forward, but I don't know, Chair, if that was something that had previously been raised, or does the area committee... The Fire and Rescue Service have managed it. I'm sure you could manage it, yeah? Well, it's maybe different. I don't think it's quite just as straightforward as that, but I can certainly take your point away, Councillor, definitely, and speak with area committee. Maybe, Chair, coming on another question. Obviously, I mentioned about custodial sentences and short sentences with repeated offenders, and Councillor Howe has mentioned that about that.
Is Police Scotland liaising with any other forces in the United Kingdom or Europe or America to see how their custodial sentences are going? Because I don't know when I was out in America there in the summertime there, they're pretty tough on people who are repeat offenders. I can tell you they're pretty tough on them, chain ganging, pretty hard on them in certain states, United States of America. But it is working over there because the crime is actually reducing in the States. And, I just wonder, is there any way we could change our sort of system, how we can stop these repeat offenders other than the custodial sentences?
Well, first of all, I think how we're going about our business is, I think it's beyond reproach, and how we're certainly taking leads from the National Safer Community teams, who will have links into other forces across the country, and trying to share that best practice is definitely done. We have all the commanders at monthly and quarterly meetings, and National Safer Communities definitely do bring in all the divisions at national meetings for looking at improved practice. But certainly in respect to the USA and how they go about their business, I don't know. I've no doubt. I'll maybe find out when I'm going to New York in February with my daughter.
Need to go down to the deep south to see how they carry on police force.
Obviously, we take best practice, Councillor, and we certainly share that as well. And we do have officers that work with community teams all over the world. And that is a well-known fact that our force is leading the forefront across the countries.
Something to note is that the standard of custodial conditions are monitored by the European Court on Human Rights and the European Commission on the Prevention of Torture, I think, who regularly carry out examinations. So there is a measure in place for
And
that.
Chair, will be coming out of Europe the 31st of January, so hopefully a lot of these rights will be dropped.
That was the point I was subtly trying to make without being too political. A normally quite sedate subcommittee. Councillor Howie.
Right, thank you. Page 5, number of sexual crimes. You know what percentage of these are historic at all? Do you know how many are current and how many are going back?
Certainly, that there is a high number that are non-recent crimes, as we call them now, and that's there's increased reporting, increased confidence. That it's over. Some of these figures are over 50% that are non-recent crime. And that generates itself a lot of sensitive inquiries with victims that may well not be, from one victim leads another who may well not want to speak to the police. So the non-recent sexual reporting is significant and a huge bit of work in the PPU area of business. Exact percent, I don't have the top of my head, Ian, but certainly you're talking over 50% of the work. Yeah.
Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Chairman. It's going back to Councillor Bell's point about a breakdown to ward level. I understand what he means with that, but it was my understanding that this is always really a strategic committee, and we should be looking at the pattern across Dumfries and Galloway as a whole, and that it could be broken down to ward level, area committee level. Although I think that would, to do it at this committee, I think that would put an undue burden on the police. It's quite a lot. I think it maybe helps that 50% of the committee today is ex-police. That maybe helps.
I don't know if that's a good thing, by the way.
Thanks for that. Right, can we have some order in the subcommittee, please, through the chair? Councillor Lever.
Just for information, page 21, the terrorism, what's the refract log?
That's a counter-terrorist log information with regard to CT information. Okay. Yeah.
That's potential incidents.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't see any other indications of questions, so move to the recommendation. Members were asked to scrutinise the performance report of Dumfries and Galloway from Police Scotland, 1st of April to 30th September 2019. Are we happy that we've done that? Yes, thank you very much, Stuart. Thank you. Okay, so we'll now move on to item 5, Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, Dumfries and Galloway, Local Plan, 6-month performance update, 1st of April 2019 to 30th September 2019, report by Head of Safe and Healthy Communities. Craig McGoldrick, Local Senior Officer for Dumfries and Galloway Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, is here to respond to any questions members may have on the report. Is there anything you'd like to add before we open up to questions, Craig?
Please, Chair. Thank you for that, members. To be fair, this is probably the first iteration of performance that has been a direct alignment to my time in post, so I would just like to put on record that I'm pleased to present this report to members. I'm confident that it does reflect the efforts of the team in quite a changing period where they've seen a full transition of their strategic leadership within the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service in Dumfries and Galloway. And I would just like to point out a couple of key stats that hopefully enforce that and back that up for you. I hope the statistics on page 36 stand out. That as an area, Dumfries and Galloway has had no accidental dwelling fire casualties in the reporting period. I just wanted to be clear that that's not a typo or an omission. It is a blank page on the basis of a good performance. And I can take that stage further. It's now been 10 months since we've had a casualty as a result of fire, which I think reflects the good preventing work that's being carried out. It's also been 22 months since we had a fire fatality, and I'm not tempting fate, but again, that in itself is quite remarkable, and I'd like to thank the team for their efforts. We will, however, not become complacent, and that will remain a key focus. Picking up on some of the underperformance, which it would only be fair to do, on page 35, whilst the 3 and the 5 year average show continued reduction, I have to point out that there has been a small rise in accidental dwelling fires themselves. So the 39 incidents, we were only actually required to carry out firefighting activities at 5, so hopefully that puts it in context about the severity, reinforced with the fact we've never had any injuries, but also in the wider performance as a degree of a benchmark. I can reassure members that we are still the second lowest area when it comes to a national performance of accidental dwelling fires. So whilst it might be seen as a spike with high swings in the percentage because of the low numbers, we are still a high performing area. Also picking up on the rate within Stranraer and Rins, I can probably offer a bit of comfort that we certainly drilled down a wee bit deeper into that. So 60% of those affected were in our elderly category, and that has come with a degree of refocusing our energy into the way we conduct our preventive engagement activities within that area, and we're continuing to see that has now bottomed out and we're managing a trend again. So whilst you don't see it, it was particular spikes in particular months as opposed to over the piece. Deliberate fires, northwest Dumfries has also shown a recent spike, which was attributed to activity within April and June of this year. And as was mentioned by the super just before he left, that actually launched a partnership and a summer initiative between the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service and Police Scotland. From that, we initiated a large number of patrols, community intelligence sharing protocols, we've increased the number of checks which are looking at the security of buildings, the abandoned cars, the refuse and the fly tipping, and again we've started to see that reduce as a performance area back to where we would expect it. Overall, I'm happy to take questions in any other particular area or go a wee bit deeper in those if it's required. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Craig. Councillor Howie and then Councillor Blake.
Thanks, Chair. Craig, I noticed that the retained service overall is doing pretty well, but there's a couple of dips. I'm looking at Dalbeattie. There seems to be an issue going down to 62% over the weekends. Staff, I take it you're doing work and you're trying to recruit in these areas to overcome that. Is it I appreciate there will be difficulties in securing retained staff. Is it something that you foresee being a problem in the future, or is there any projects underway to try and mitigate against these?
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, I'm glad you noticed the overall performance, because we do sit at 92% for the area, which is over and above a West average of 72 and a national average of 70. So even where we do see an underperformance at Dalbeattie, it's almost in line with the national average. So our starting point is very high, and obviously that highlights any areas of concern within our own area. Dalbeattie happens to just be suffering from a period of long-term sickness and absence, so whilst it's not a gap in establishment figures, so it doesn't give me the ability to recruit new bodies in, it's just that we are supporting and managing staff who are unfit for work at this point in time. Yes, absolutely. So we continue to support and continue to recruit, and we are working a collective business case, if you like, to see where we can push the support. Dalbeattie sits within the Stewardship clearly, and that was one of the areas that benefited from the new post created and started this year, the rural full-time post. I'm privileged to sit here and say we've secured a further one of those posts for the area to increase our establishment of our whole-time staff basis, and that will be carrying out work supporting the Wigtonshire area as we go forward into next year.
Thank you, Craig. Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Howie covered my first point, that was in Dalbeattie. Secondly, I understand there have been a few instances of mobile phone chargers catching fire. There was some recent publicity. Doing any preventative work in that respect?
Locally, not specifically on mobile phone chargers. We do tend to use the national messaging, so I'm sure you would have seen everything related to certain brands of tumble dryers, etc. When we go through the process of we've got clear evidence that it's related to a particular type or a model number, we will ensure that we support the communication of that. Mobile phone sits within the home safety, so it's that generic check every time we're in a household. We're looking at slips, trips and falls right through to can we manage the risk within that premise in the period that we're there. So it's part of the generic information, but particularly targeting mobile phone chargers, no, not at this time.
Thank you. No further questions? Councillor Fairbairn.
Thanks for that, Craig. Ian. I'm really impressed with this report, by the way, because I've come to this committee for the last 3 years, and we've always been given these vast reports with everything, you having to look through them. Very streamlined, very to the point. Great to see the figures going down. A really, really positive report. So thanks very much for all your hard work.
Thank you. Councillor Davison.
Thank you, Chairman. So won't go back to Dalbeattie, but was wondering, just when you were talking about the specific officers that you'd mentioned, maybe wanted to seek advice from yourself, Chairman, as to whether or not it might be appropriate for this committee to hear a bit more about actually how that's working and the difference it's making as they're kind of getting buried in and I guess taking root on the ground. Might be something that the committee would benefit from having a report on or finding more about as things develop. It would obviously be kind of a little bit additional to our standard reporting, but it strikes me that it's a new asset obviously for the region. It would probably benefit us to understand a bit more about how it's getting on and developing,
I think it's a very fair request. Craig?
Thank you. Councillor, I'd welcome the opportunity. They are a great news story. Yes, so we're bringing in 2 considerable pay points, if you like, to Dumfries and Galloway as an employment opportunity. Both individuals have transitioned from our own retained duty system into what we class as now the whole-time service. That in itself has opened up a career path which wasn't there before. The contribution that they do make is wide and varied across everything from availability, which supplements stations that are struggling, right through to that community engagement and working with employers to ensure when we do need to recruit, we're in a good position. I'd be more than willing to tie in with the project leads who are taking this forward nationally to get the overall picture of how well it's been embedded, but I'll certainly then put a local spin on it and provide that to members if that meets the needs of the request.
That's great. Thank you very much, Craig. So if there's no further questions, we'll move to the recommendation. So members were asked to scrutinise performance report for Dumfries and Galloway from Scottish Fire and Rescue Service for 1st of April to 30th September 2019. Are we happy that we've done that? Yes? Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Craig. Okay, that's been 24 minutes and we're on to item 6. I don't have any other business deemed urgent, so I'll bring the meeting to a close and thank everyone for their participation. Thank you.